Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win, or you find a way to lose. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Man, I came across a post out here that I didn't really think much of it until I saw some of the comments being made. Now, Claressa Shields, look, man, a person can say what they want. And I personally don't think there's anything wrong with anyone coming out here and being supportive of what they may feel are underserving athletes. Okay? But this is the thing. Race is a sensitive topic, man. You know what I'm saying? That's why with me, and especially even now, but when I was working 25 years of what I was doing, you know what I'm saying? There were certain conversations that I just wouldn't indulge in, and especially when I was in a certain leadership capacity, I was like, nah, we don't have those conversations in here. And those conversations where the topic was on race, religion, political affiliation, economic status, and sexual preference. I just feel that from my experience, whenever you start talking about those things, oh my gosh, things go way, way left. Y'all, for those of you who are probably, I don't know, maybe 18, 19, 20 years old, you can probably pull from some life experiences, but you can't pull from what I can pull from after being now 48 years on this earth, spending 25 years in the military. You see a little bit of everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. And let me tell you, when you start talking about those topics that I just threw out there, things go left. So Claressa Shields goes on and she says that she'll be happy when she sees all the African American men who currently hold world titles, but this was a good watch. And what she's talking about is there was a watch about 10 Latino men currently hold world boxing titles, and obviously something that she watched and enjoyed it, but felt maybe for her taste would have been nice. It would be nice to also have something like that, kind of talking about some of her favorite boxers, African American in particular, and their stories. Now, I'm gonna say this, right? Let me just show you this. See, because people can kind of say what they want. There's someone with a profile called BoxingHole, right? And they said here, the reason why, talking about Claressa Shields, is not respected as much as Katie Taylor. So right there you see, they seem to be the individual that's doing the race baiting, in my opinion, is because Claressa Shields is a race baiter and talks too much. There's a whole lot said just right there. Whilst Katie Taylor is humble and does good things to female boxing. Now, just reading this from BoxingHole, the real reason why Claressa Shields is not respected as much as Katie Taylor is because Claressa Shields is a race baiter and talks too much. Look, that whole statement is just crazy because obviously they're giving their opinion and I can't tell them they're wrong for their opinion. I don't agree with them necessarily. But as far as Claressa Shields being vocal, I think it's good for everybody to be vocal. There's no need to suffer in silence. And Claressa Shields is in a position, now when I hear her talk, I'm going to be honest with you. I have his boxing channel, but man, I don't have as much time as some of these people like BoxingHole to sit here and look at every little tweet someone puts out, every little video. I just don't do it, man. All right? I carve out a little bit of time every day. And when I say a little bit, I mean a little bit. Because my life revolves around my children and my family. You know what I'm saying? Like right now, it's 11:58. Everybody's asleep. I come and do 1 or 2 videos, and then I'm back in the swing of things. It's all about family. But what I'll tell you is, right, from what I've seen from Claressa Shields, she's proud to be, a black woman in America. And she's proud of her accomplishments. And, I don't think it's any secret that there's a double standard, man. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to not just race, comes to religion, when it comes to, sexual preference, gender identification now, or when it comes to political affiliation, even economic status, right? It's true. You know what I'm saying? And it's not even just saying that, there's a disservice being done. They say African American. I ain't got time for all that shit. Black fighters, white fighters, I'm old school. I ain't got time for all this sensitive crap that people do. Let's just keep it simple, right? But man, you take a look at what's going on when you understand the history of, Scottish people, Polish people, Irish people. Man, you look at shit going on in Syria, stuff going on throughout the Middle East, and you start really understanding that there's a lot of struggle, and a lot of the struggle across so many different cultures, right? Let me tell you, some of the struggle has to do with race, some of it doesn't. Some of it has to do with religion, some of it doesn't. Some of it has to do with who has the have and have-nots. It's so deep, man. But I just don't like how they immediately go to trying to attack her and talk about how she talks too much. Hey, look, she's someone who's very vocal. You know what I mean? It's just what she is. There's a lot of people who are very vocal. But, if she was quiet, would that make them happy? You know what I'm saying? There's some people who said, he's talking about Katie Taylor. I've heard people say Katie Taylor isn't vocal enough. Katie Taylor is kind of passive. They said that about Savannah Marshall. She's not vocal enough. She just kind of sits back and she's passive. They wish she would kind of speak up for herself a little bit more. Like, their personalities are their personalities. There's nothing wrong with that. That she's out here saying she'll be happy to see, when the African American men who currently hold world titles, to see something about them. Just like there's nothing wrong with seeing a documentary about all the fighters whose families were gypsies, or all the fighters, boxers who were Muslims, or Christian, or Catholic, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing wrong with that. To me, it's not, because I see things through a different lens. That shit is interesting to me. You know what I mean? When I see all these damn Filipino fighters coming out now, I had no idea, I'm gonna be honest with you, until a couple of years ago that Pacquiao really was putting out so many fighters. Pacquiao Promotions, I heard about it, but I didn't realize that he was, really out there doing work in the PI, and all them guys coming out, they all fighting southpaw looking like Pacquiao with big calves and everything. But I had no idea. So for me, it's very interesting. Even though I don't agree with Paulie Malignaggi, I think he got the sauce in him. But I paid attention to the European fighters, the European style. When I look at Bivol fighting, I think it's interesting to know this man is Russian, but his mother or dad or grandparents or whoever came from Korea. Especially with me being a guy who spent 3 years in Korea. But it makes me want to go back and dig a little bit and get more of an understanding about some of these fighters. But I don't just stop at race. Now, we talk about stereotypes and Claressa Shields being loud. There's stereotypes about, what you see in TV most of the time is a lot of negative stuff. And she is a loud fighter, you know, and you do a press conference with Claressa Shields. If you start trying to basically, you know, feel that you're going to say things she doesn't like, she's not going to sit there and tolerate it. And, you know, she's going to speak her mind. And some people don't like that. But in my opinion, if you're going to start something, you're going to be Al Capone, go all the way. But to come down and say she's race baiting, I don't think so. You know, if I come out and put a tweet out saying, man, you know what, I'd like to know more about this gypsy and the fighting culture. So what am I? You know what I'm saying? A person can't say anything about me because they don't know nothing about my background. You know what I mean? But some people just look and just see the brown skin, and maybe some clown will say something. I had somebody that I blocked. Matter of fact, I blocked somebody from this channel. I blocked probably about 150 people since I started this channel last year. Well, restarted it anyway. I'm going to be honest with you. I was talking about Savannah Marshall and Claressa Shields. I was one of the first to really cover the build up to that. I started about maybe 6 months before, maybe a year before that fight even happened. And there was someone who took the fact that had been in the military for a while, because they heard me say that, and he said something about he felt that I was, because I was saying I think it's a close fight. I think Katie Taylor could win by knockout if she can execute a game plan, but I see Claressa Shields outboxing Katie Taylor. That's what I said. But if Claressa Shields gets careless, it could get interesting, especially in those early rounds. And this guy came out there and he told me he thinks that the military messed me up when it comes to the pink toes. And I'll be honest with you, I never heard anything like that. And I did make an assumption that he was saying basically that the military messed me up when it came to how I view, you know, white people. And one thing I realized is the people in the comments and the people watching the videos, they don't know me, I don't know them. But one thing I've learned is that the majority of people who come on here are very intelligent, who are all about boxing. But there are a concentric few who are very stupid, very limited mentally. And they will come in here and type and say anything because there are no consequences. So, well, there's no consequence of getting punched in your face. But that being said, you can take a blow by getting blocked. And I'm not going to tell anybody nothing. I read those comments, I just block you. I go to your profile and I block you. And I'll never unblock you. And I had one guy change his, he created another YouTube channel and came back to my page and was like, oh, Hood, I see you blocked me, huh? Well, you know, once I realized that, stupid, I just blocked him again. So he probably back on the channel on a new profile. He just learned to shut his mouth and not say anything. But I don't think there's an issue with anyone who comes out here and wants to see, you know, videos or content or documentaries or different articles written on Asian fighters, female fighters. The story about like Manny Pacquiao being poor, Canelo Alvarez selling ice cream. You know, like there's nothing wrong with that. That's interesting. I did a video about Eddie Reynoso's story. A lot of people don't know about his story. Like those are the interesting stories. The Klitschko story, very interesting. That their dad and the position he was at in the military, and those two guys and their upbringing and their schooling, academically in sports. You know, you get to see that there's so many layers to our athletes. And I think if there's not a lot of content or videos or documentaries or movies on European fighters, and this I'm just talking sports, right? I'm talking boxing, on, you know, black fighters, white fighters, European fighters, Asian fighters, fighters from all 7 continents, right? Then there should be more, because for me, I'll watch it. It's interesting to me. And with what she's saying here, you know, I think that would be interesting. Look at the views you get on some of the fighters, which the bigger names and profiles. Look at some of the views, man. It's crazy. So there's a demand to see these things. There's a demand. I go out there, man, to pull up that whole Tyson Fury and documentaries, especially what's interesting to some people about Tyson Fury. He talks about being a gypsy. A lot of people don't understand that. Those videos get a lot of views. And then there's the little bit of, drama that comes with boxing. Tyson Fury, the whole coming back to boxing, the Kinahan, that gets a lot of views. Documentaries are created because there's a demand for it. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. I just don't get it. It's like Andre Ward, the son of God. I remember a lot of people had an issue with Andre Ward calling himself the SOG, son of God. There's nothing wrong with him talking about being proud of his faith. Just like there's nothing wrong with Amir Khan and being Muslim. Or if you have a boxer who's an atheist. That's their choice, man, But to have these documentaries and have different things put out on them is interesting to take time to watch it. It gives you a peek behind the tent flaps. But when you come down here and you take a look at just a couple of the comments, right? This guy here, she really has hate in her heart. That's why her event is flopping. You see, they immediately go on the attack, which is their right. Who am I to tell people they're right or wrong? It's just not my style. This is what the face of female boxing does. And they're showing basically that, some of the seats haven't sold out. And then one guy's kind of questioning them like race baiter. And this guy says, so no problem with ESPN's post, 10 Latino men currently holding world titles. But since Claressa Shields wants African-American men to hold all the titles, she's a race baiter. African-American isn't just a race, it's an ethnicity. So what's wrong with rooting for her own? Let me tell you something in boxing, man. And this is the problem. In the United States, there's so much diversity here, which makes it, which is a pro. But then there's some cons to it because with all that diversity, man, everyone is kind of compartmentalized. Not everybody here in the United States sees themselves as fellow Americans. You go to Trinidad and Tobago, everyone there, irregardless of your Chinese, your Syrian background, Indian, black, white, they all see themselves as a Trinidadian first. They're from Tobago. They see themselves from Trinidad and Tobago. When I was in Korea, everyone was Korean. It doesn't matter if someone, dad was from America, whatever, but if they were born there, they grew up there, they're Korean. In Japan, same thing. Go to Puerto Rico, same thing. I'm not saying there's not little BS when it comes to some racial issues, but what I'm telling you is culturally, for the most part, it's all the damn same. In America, culturally, it's not the same. There are vast contrasts here in America. Then there's the history here. There's a lot of history all over the world. But the shit gets handed down from generation to generation to generation. I'm going to tell you something right now. This is what I'm telling you is the truth. We don't talk race in my house at all, man. My oldest son is about to be 13. We don't talk that stuff here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I tell him, man, attitude is everything. If you want to judge somebody, judge them on how they treat you. And then you make sure if it's positive, you reciprocate. If not, they're toxic. You don't need them in your circle. But there's a little kid, right? Had to be about 3 years old. And my kids were playing. And this little kid is, they weren't playing with him, but he's in the house, right? So anyway, while they're over there in the house with their friends, they're playing, like hide and seek or something, man. So they're fooling around inside the house. Anyway, the little 3-year-old kid comes over and he says something like, if you turn the lights off, don't turn the lights off, then we can't find you. Something along those lines to two of my sons. They're like, what did he say? And then the 3-year-old had a sibling who was like 6. And that sibling said, oh, because you guys are black, you turn the lights off, then we can't see you. Daddy says it's not a fair game of hide and seek. And I remember my sons told me that, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So since then, I didn't say anything at all. I just told them, I was like, that those little kids are being taught hate, and I was like, "Don't worry about it." I said, "Just understand that they don't know any better. It's what they're being taught." I said, "But that's inappropriate for them to say that." And then there were some other things that came out. But what I'm getting at is what's about things being handed down through the generations. Why in the world would anyone want to teach that to their 3-year-old, 4, 5, 6-year-old, no matter what age of your child? So that kid at 3 has that on his brain. How do you think that little guy is going to be by the time he gets 12? You know what I'm saying? So it's just unfortunate that through generations, and this shit is bigger than sports. It's all races have that concentric few that have hate in their heart, man. And it's unfortunate. But this guy goes on here, CFS Sports Club, and says she got a lot of hate in her heart and she don't even hide it no more because no one checks her on it besides fans, but nobody with a large platform says anything comical. I mean, she can say what she wants. I haven't seen her say anything attacking. Now, again, remember, you guys may think I sit on here all day because I have a channel. I don't get on here and follow what all these fools are saying. You know what I'm saying? They can say what the hell they want. I mean, I truly believe that. Who am I to tell someone what they can and can't say? You can do anything you want. And I'm telling you right now, if you want to walk outside and go and blow somebody's head off, you want to go out here and do something crazy, go do it. What's stopping you? You know what I'm saying? It's your right. You just be ready to deal with the consequences, okay? Be ready to deal with those consequences. You want to go out here, get mad because Claressa Shields said something, or because you feel something about Tyson Fury, or because you have an issue with who or whatever in sports or outside of sports, your boss, the mailman. Go out there, do something. Just be ready to deal with the consequences. Okay, simple. But I don't think she has hate on her heart at all. But one thing I will say is I don't know. This is the thing. This is why I don't get into all this crap. Because if only the fly on the wall could talk, I think Claressa Shields has 2 gold medals. To me, she should be a gazillionaire just for that accomplishment. 2 gold medals in boxing, a female. Why isn't she a gazillionaire? Why isn't she all out here on sport drinks? Why isn't her profile much bigger? Why doesn't she get the support like she should over here in the United States? Some people say it's because she's black. All right, we're just having a conversation, right? Some people say because she's black and she's a female, and she's in boxing, and that's why she doesn't get the support that she really deserves. And then other people come out and say, well, she doesn't get that support because she has a big mouth. And, unfortunately, that's just a stereotype that, black women have big mouths in the ghetto. That's a negative stereotype, which is not true. There's a lot of people, regardless of race, that can be vocal, that can be obnoxious. But I'm just being real with you, man. And unfortunately for Claressa Shields, she comes and just says something that seemed pretty innocent to me. And now you got guys like this person at CFS Sports Club. Now that Claressa Shields has hate on her heart. Man, come on, man. But anyway, I just don't see where she's a person who hates other races. Like I just have never seen that from her. I've never picked up any of that from what little bit I've seen in a tweet from her. I don't see it. I don't get it. And just something so innocent for someone to put a tweet out, and it gets and the person's name gets dragged through the mud. I can only imagine if I wanted to take this tweet that she put, if I wanted to make it negative, you know how negative I could make it? And there are people who are going to do that. But I'm not going to do that. I'm sitting here saying that unfortunately, there are real issues out here in the world, and there are real people that have issues with race, but I think it's more of a concentric view across all races, all religions, all genders, and I don't think she did anything wrong. And I think everybody should have the right to express themselves and talk about things. I know if something's agitating me, I'm going to talk about it. This video's more of me kind of talking and venting than really discussing boxing. You look at this guy here, Mobuck, says respected by fans. I've heard all fighters hold her in high regards. That's what I'm trying to say. Even over in the UK, she fought Savannah Marshall. Oh, man, there's not one boxing fan, whether they like Claressa Shields or not, I've not heard one say that she's not an amazing fighter. She's not the GOAT. Some people may laugh at the whole GOAT because the shit sound kind of funny. But when you understand the greatest woman of all times, I haven't heard many people disagree with it. They all speak highly of her. You just never, it's just to see what she's able to do in the ring is unbelievable. So I haven't seen or heard of anyone say anything negative about her as a boxer and her way she performs, except that they hold her in high regard and that I've even heard her say that she's unbeatable. Okay? But anyway, it's crazy that they'll sit there and act like that, man. I don't know. And I think it'll be interesting. Matter of fact, I may start doing that. I may start putting together champion lists by race, champion lists by continent, champion lists by guys who grew up in extreme poverty, or just a list of boxers who are elite boxers who are able to escape poverty, you know. And I think just when you have people who come out of sufferation, man, I think that's interesting. And I think we should. I mean, that's what we as boxing fans are interested in, right? Not just who's going to win, who we think going to win the fight. It should be in the athletes themselves. I think it's interesting. I tell you, when you start doing this, I think people are going to see that there's so much more to these athletes that we didn't know. Just like I did that video about the whole thing about scoring fights, and we were able to pull up some of the criteria for how judges should be scoring fights. I had a lot of people say, man, I learned a lot from that video. I think we need to talk about different things. Not everything can be the same shock and awe nonsense. You know, and definitely race baiting ain't the answer, man. But I understand some people are frustrated because some people have built their channels. For the most part, everything is race. That's not my thing, man. So, again, race baiting in America, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I just don't think Claressa Shields is doing any race baiting right now. And I don't think if somebody's talking about race, necessarily they're trying to bait anything, you know. But social media, man, it's tweets. That's what it's there for. That's why they give you a limited space to just get a little tweet out and go on about your day. But for those people who think that she's race baiting, I'm not telling you you're wrong either. You have your right to have your opinion. I mean, I just don't think so. But going forward with Claressa Shields, I do think the secret society is real. And unfortunately, sometimes you got to be careful what you say. And not because she's a black female who's outspoken. This goes for everyone who's performing at the highest level, who has a huge profile. I learned this. I had someone pull me aside. Some of you may remember in videos where I've said this before. I got to a certain level before I retired. You couldn't go any higher. You know what I'm saying? And I had somebody pull me aside. And since we're talking about race, he was white. Okay? He and I were real tight. And when I got promoted to that final rank, he pulled me in the office and he's like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And he sat down and he talked, you know, he called me by my first name. And he was like, "Hey, you at a level now?" He was like, And he told me, he said, you know your stuff. He was like, and I was the same way. He's like, but I'm gonna tell you, I had to learn this, to listen a whole lot and talk very little. He was like, cause man, it doesn't matter what you're saying, if it's right, if it's innocent. He was like, what you're saying, he was like, doesn't matter what you intend. What matters is how the person receiving it interprets it. And he told me that. He foot stomped that shit about 30 times before I left out that office. He's like, remember, it's not about you, the sender. It's about the receiver. He said, you understand? I said, oh, no, I get it, man. He was like, I know you have your experience with that crap. He said, but I'm telling you, at this level, he was like, learn to just listen. People say things you don't like, just take a deep breath, blow it out. He's like, you can say what you want to say in your mind. He's like, but don't be careful of when you speak. He's like, because I'm telling you, man, you may have the best intention, but if that receiver interprets your message as something different, he was like, you're going to be back in the corner trying to defend yourself over something that you know in your heart what you meant. He's like, but now you get someone who interprets it the kind of way and creates a narrative, and now you're in a bad position. And when I look at this right here, what she tweeted, I think this is something that she had in her mind. And I think it would have been best if she would have not put that out there. But that's all right. But I just think because of her position, just don't tweet shit. Don't tweet stuff like that. There may be other ways for her to put it out there. Maybe you sit there and watch that and make a little note and say, during another interview, something when I'm talking, maybe I'll find a way to get on the subject. You know what I mean? Find a way to deliver it to where it doesn't come across as. But at the same time, if you take on everybody you meet who has an issue with something you tweet or you say, you'll be a busy person. So these athletes got to figure it out. But I do think it's important to listen plenty and talk very little when you get to these levels. But that being said, I don't think she's a racist, man. I don't think a lot of these people out here, people are saying are racist, man, just because they come out and speak, passionately about, their culture, their religion, or whatever it is. I mean, you should be proud. You know what I'm saying? You should be. But that being said, y'all keep cool. Unless somebody just says something that is just in your face, racism, then I think we shouldn't be so quick to just start assuming and taking the message and interpreting in the most negative way. That ain't my style. But at the same time, I'm no fool about what goes on in the world, the injustices done to a lot of people, irregardless of race, irregardless of religion, irregardless of political affiliation, gender, when it comes to sexual preference, gender identity, economic status. I'm no fool. It's just, if you want to hear someone talk about that, find another channel, because I'm here to talk boxing and not dive into all that. But I have an opinion like you do. But again, I listen a whole lot more than talk. So I'm going to end this video and stop talking. Y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans, all 7 continents. If you got something to say, say it, man. Don't suffer in silence. But if you got a huge profile or you're in a huge position out there at work or you're running your own business and stuff like that, listen, learn to listen a whole lot. And when you talk, make sure you're adding to the conversation and talk very little. That being said, you know what I'm in. The breeze.